Yeah, it's amazing. You know it because you had one of the best gimmicks in this business as well. It's like the people know who they like, and they know who they boo, and they know who they want to cheer for, and they know who they want to buy when it comes to action figures and all this stuff. You know what I mean? And I gotta admit, man, we have the last 2-3 years have sold so much. I mean, we sold more action figures when Hawk had passed than we did when we were working full time. Became part of that Legends program, and it's just been crazy. And you know how popular the gimmicks are in the UK and overseas and Germany and Brussels and a bunch of other places. You know, it's just it's like you're right. It's like a never-ending cycle, which is kind of nice for everybody. You know what I mean?
And then, you know, by the Hall of Fame thing and everything, and those people seeing those clips on you guys, and we have listeners from all over the world right now, and we'll have 10,000 downloads tomorrow from people who can't listen to the show live tonight, and they really are the fans around the world that buy the action figures and all of those things. And I didn't really get to listen to your speech because I was signing the autographs, but I know that what you were saying came from your heart, and that's the only way to give a speech. I noticed you didn't have any notes because, you know, when I inducted Coco back in Houston, they said, "Do you need a script to read?" I said, "Gosh, no, I've known the guy for 34 years. We trained together." I said, "I don't need somebody to tell me what to say," and you didn't either.
No, it was kind of cool. You know, Ellering is so eloquent in his speech that I just, you know, he said he's so off the wall in his verbiage that I just kind of was looking at him and reacting off him, and I just knew when he's done, it was my time, and I just filled in. You know, they tried to give me the guy to write the speech, and I bless his heart, he wanted to do something really well for us, and he was great to work with, but I just couldn't do it. I said, listen, you know, and I really wanted to paint my face that night too, but I'm glad I didn't, because, you know, I figured that's the way I came into this dance, and that's the way I wanted to leave this dance. You know what I mean? And but once Ellering brought out that Hawk figure and put it on the podium, you know, we all almost lost it there up on stage. You know, so I just said, "Oh Lord!" I said, "Where did you get that thing from?" And you know, and he said it on there, and then they got a close up on there, and then the crowd gave him a standing ovation again, and it was just nuts, man. It's just there's nothing like that WWE universe, man. That WWE fan base. It's just crazy.
It really is, and those moments there's such moving moments for someone, and you mentioned the face paint, and that brings me to I don't know how you were able to do it, but night after night, and every time I've seen photos or seen you in person, putting that scorpion or the giant spider, it never changes. You never deviate from it, and are you an artist or a painter in any way? You know, my brother Mark, who used to wrestle as one of the Wrecking Crew, one of Terminator, he's the artist in the family. He can draw, you know, Leonard Skinner album covers and all this other stuff. He's phenomenal. I cannot draw you a stick man on a piece of paper. Oh God! Now, why would you say that when that is the most unique drawing that anyone could ever do, and you have to do it by reverse because you're looking in the mirror. I know, but for some reason I get in the face paint and I get on there and I'm drawing backwards on there and I get the lines all right and it all matches, and I don't know how I get it to match up. That's why Hawk always did the Joker look. He goes, I can't screw this one up. This is why I'm going to do. This is my Joker look. Sticks out the tongue. I can't screw this. You know, I can only draw this one, and I'm not doing any other ones. You know, so okay. And I always did the spider and tried to do the horns or the whatever. You know, so anyway, yeah. Well, those are the things that set someone apart from someone else, and that's what makes you uniquely different. And then when it comes from the crowd reaction or the crowd gravitating towards you, then that's what does it.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the whole name of the game, right? You get that crowd to. Yeah, and you know how finicky the crowd is. They're only going to yay and boo who they want to yay and boo. I mean, the wrestling fans are some of the smartest fans around. They're not. You can't trick them. You know,
no, they're extremely. Yeah. But I always look back when I see you guys, and I saw that contrast, and every partner, for 12 years that I started in the business, I started as a single wrestler, and 6 months later I was in tag teams for like 10 or 12 years. And every partner I had, there was a contrast. And I had it when I was with Larry Latham, who was Spot Moondog. He was the brawler. I was the razzmatazz guy. With Greg Valentine, when he dyed his hair black, he was the brawler. I was the razzmatazz guy. You were the brawler, and Hawk was the razzmatazz guy, and did all the, the silly body movements and things like that. And that's what set you apart.
Half the time we would do promos. I was the hard sell guy. I would remind people what the four horsemen did to us. I would remind everybody and why we're going to get it back. Then I'd tell Hawk something, and Hawk would come. Well, Animal was so bad, we were giving our mom kitty punches before we were even born. And I'm looking at him, and I have to walk off the set and shake my head because I'm cracking up. I don't know where this is coming from. He would come out, Hawk would do whatever he had to do to get right. He'd get right, and he'd come in and do those promos, and the next thing you know, he just rattled them all off. And then Ellering standing by me with the smirk, hitting that Wall Street Journal in his hand, and he would just chime in on something too. It's just, man, I'll tell you. And you know what? We never, ever once went over. What are you going to say, bro? You know what you're going to say? No. What are you going to say? No. We never said anything.
I did the same thing. I never looked. When Jimmy Hart and I were together, we'd step up there, and Mean Gene would say, well, okay, Saturday night we're in so-and-so, and you have so. I just went, and Jimmy didn't know what I was going to say, and I didn't know what he was going to, and we just did it.
Honky, with Mike Graham, Mike Graham, great guy. Second generation guy in this business, and I respect Mike. Mike said, he goes, you know what that's called? Guys that don't have to rehearse anything and just get pops like that and do whatever, that's the it factor. He goes, I call that the it factor. And I said, why do you call it the it factor? He goes, because they can look in the ring, they don't have to say anything, the crowd reacts, that's part of it. They can get on the mic, talk about their opponents, that's part of it. They know how to get them to yay, boo, kind of like a ventriloquist, or a puppeteer, and that's part of the it. He goes, yeah. He goes, guys like you guys have the it factor. And I said, well, that's nice of you to say, Mike. I said, we're just trying, at the time, we're just trying to get our high spots right, and not trip over the top rope with those spikes on our shoulders,
Well, and see there again, you guys had the uniforms, fabulous, absolutely. Whoever, I don't know which one of you guys came up with the idea of having these spikes and the shoulder pads and the fans don't realize that those things, you guys had these steel spikes on those shoulder pads. I don't know what 20, 30 pounds you carried around every day through the airports, every day to every building.
We barely made the weight limit on the airplanes. That's why we always had 2 or 3 bags. Hawk came up with the ideas of the haircuts. We're sitting there with Ole Anderson one time, and Hawk came up and says, hey, what if Animal has a mohawk and I'll have a reverse mohawk so it looks like we bend over, we can plug our heads into each other, bam, right? That's where the haircuts came from. Now, the shoulder pads, I remember I had a friend of mine that was playing for the Miami Dolphins, and his equipment manager, Bobby Monica, his brother Ted, was the head of Rydell Power Protective Equipment. And I said, wow, what if we did shoulder pads? I told Mike, we had like a couple months off, and I said, hey, I'm going to devise us some new stuff to wear, shoulder pads with spikes on them and stuff. What do you think? It was cool. And I sat in my garage with my drill bit, and I'm drilling holes, and I'm putting different size spikes all over everywhere. I had a friend of mine that worked at a tooling crib making for us. Next thing you know, we came up with the black shoulder pads, and they just worked. We had the chrome chains hanging from them with the pads, and, sprayed the tips of them red and let them drip down like it was blood, and it all worked.
I know, and when you look back at other tag teams like maybe the interns or the medics who walked out with a mask on and white tights and white trunks and went to the ring, and here come you guys, haircuts, face paint, spikes sticking out, and you know, I mean, how can you follow that?
I know, right? Exactly. You know, when you guys like there's remember when Jim Herd made Ding and Dong and trying to make all these other kind of teams and you know, a real downtime on our business. You know, you should have seen Ricky Morton's face the very first time we worked with Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson. Now, there couldn't have been a more clean-cut, white meat, babyface team in the history of the business than those two guys at the time, right?
Yeah, yes.
From any girl 10 years old up, they loved them. You know, and you know, and here we are, New Orleans Superdome, wrestling for Jim Crockett Senior Memorial Cup, and we've not even got the chance to talk to Ricky and Robert because of that building in New Orleans. There's no way to get across the way it was set up, right? So we're sitting there, and I could just see Ricky over there shaking. He goes, I'll start. So I tell Hawk, and it was Hawk and I said, Hawk, I'll start with this little punk, and you know, and I'm totally just ribbing Ricky. Now he don't even know it. And I lock up with Ricky. Oh yeah, I lock up Ricky, and I give him a gut shot, and I throw him in. And I said, duck that elbow, duck the clothesline, give me the hip toss, 2 drop kicks, and I'll come in feet for drop kick. He goes, what? I said, just do it. Bam, bam. He gives me 2 drop kicks. Hawk comes in feet for a drop kick, and he looks at me. He goes, you son of a bitch, you can work. You are a worker. You work. He was so mad at me because I never told him, you know, we never took very many arm drags. Not that we couldn't do them. It's just that at certain times the guys we were working with, it just didn't take for us to do that move, you know. And
absolutely.
But Ricky came in there. We turned into like 2 stone cold, just normal heel guys, and those guys were bumping us around. The crowd was going nuts, and we were just laughing on the outside of the ring. Halloran came over and gave us a hug. He goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm just messing around with Ricky right now. You know, so it was cool.
Ricky would get very nervous if he didn't know somebody. I know him. But that's
Ricky's the kind of guy. If he's nervous, he said, "Hey, are you mad at me today? Let me know. I'll just hit myself." You know, you know.
But gosh,
so that way when you do the clothesline, it doesn't hurt. Oh man.
See, and the fans, a lot of fans never knew that. You guys came out of Minnesota, as I mentioned, with Sergeant Slaughter, and he mentioned the guys that he came through with. And for some reason, Minnesota turned out, I can't even list them all. There's so many of the guys. Who came through the school with you and Hawk? I know there's a list of characters.
Well, you had Hawk and myself. You had Smash Demolition, Barry Darso. You had Ravishing Rick Rude. You had Scott Norton, who was the World Arm Wrestling Champ with the NWO with Hulk Hogan. Then you had Nikita Koloff, had a broken leg, but he actually watched every one of our camps. So all those guys came out of the same one camp. You know, we had a 3-month camp, and we all came out of the same one. So and every one of us did pretty decent in one way or another in the wrestling business. You know, so it was pretty cool. Now the Sargent's camp, you had Greg Gagne and Ellering and Kenny Patera, and that's just and the Iron Sheik. That's just a few guys.
Right. There had. I mean, so. If you and I sat down, I think we would probably miss some, but there had to be at least 30, 40 guys that came out of Minnesota that, and like you said, your group of guys, each and every one of them has achieved some good level of success or a great level.
Well, you know who gets overlooked all the time and not mentioned with either group is Bob Backlund.
Yeah,
Bob Backlund was a great world champ, man. You know, and he gets overlooked all the time, which is surprising. You know, so yeah, there was quite a few, man. At one time, it was like Texas or Minnesota for a while. Guys coming out, you know.
I
Actually,
know
three places: Tennessee, Texas, and Minnesota.
Well, you know, we always get us guys from Tennessee get brought up, but there was not compared to the Minnesota people. We're a very small. We're a very minority group of guys. There was not very many of us.
Well, you should have seen us though. I mean, we used to goof around. You know, of course, we all worked out at Ventura's gym because we were all young, and he had the only gym there, so we trained because it was Jesse the Body Ventura, right? But when we kidded around about wrestling, we would actually only be kidding about wrestling until we were all bouncing at that same bar, Grandma B's, and Sharky was the bartender. And Sharky says, well, I'm going to do a wrestling camp. And we didn't even know if it was a real wrestling camp.